I had to be exactly right, perfectly attuned to her uncertainty, perfectly attuned to the fragile bond forming between us. By the end of the morning, she had begun to press against me instinctively, curling slightly into my side. I responded without thinking, leaning, nudging, adjusting. Outside, the drizzle had softened to a mist, and the world beyond the shelter seemed quiet, almost reverent. And in that small, dimly lit room, I felt something profound: connection. Two small creatures, each broken in some way, learning to rely on one another, finding comfort in first touch, in shared warmth, in the simple miracle of being together. For the first time, I understood that protection wasn't just about guarding from the world. It was about being present, steady, patient. And she, tiny, blind, trembling, had just taught me what that could feel like. The shelter felt smaller that day, as if the walls themselves had leaned in closer, pressing down with a weight I could almost feel in my chest. Outside, the storm had returned, wind rattling the windows, rain slashing sideways, pooling in corners, splashing against the tiles. I could sense the tension in the air, in the humans moving hurriedly around us, their voices low and clipped, full of urgency I didn't understand. But I didn't need words to know something was wrong. My senses told me everything. The sharp scent of disinfectant, the anxious energy in the air, the way the little kitten stiffened at each sudden sound. I tried to approach her as I had before, nudging gently, brushing my fur against hers. But this time she flinched violently, scrambling backward, claws grazing my side. Her hiss was sharp, filled with panic, and my heart leapt in my chest. I froze, unsure what to do, my instincts screaming to comfort her, to calm her. But every move seemed to make her pull away more. My tail tucked slightly, my ears flicking back as I circled, trying to gauge the right distance, the right touch, the right tone of presence. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside me. I realized slowly that trust wasn't linear. Just because she had leaned into me yesterday didn't mean she was safe today. Fear could surge without warning, sweeping away all progress we had made. I pressed myself to the floor, lowering my body, keeping my weight off her paws, giving her room. I let my chest rise and fall slowly, hoping she could feel the rhythm of my heartbeat, steady and calm, and understand that I wasn't going anywhere. Each time her tiny paw brushed against me in hesitation, I responded with the gentlest nudge, not pushing, not forcing, just showing her that presence could be patient. The storm outside grew louder, wind howling, rain pounding, and I could feel my own anxiety rising with it. Every flash of lightning made her jerk violently, and each clap of thunder rattled my own chest. Yet in the middle of this, I understood something profound. Fear shared is fear halved. I leaned closer, letting her tremble against my warmth, pressing gently, making myself a shield against the chaos. She stiffened at first, but gradually, with tiny micro-moments, a paw resting lightly on my side, a small sigh, she began to learn that I would not leave her, that I would not harm her, that I could hold her through the storm. Minutes stretched into hours. I adjusted constantly, curling around her, letting her press against my chest, moving my nose gently over her fur, brushing away the subtle tremors I could feel beneath her soft body. Every step I took, every breath I exhaled, was measured to be steady, calm, reassuring. I was learning too, learning patience, empathy, the quiet language of care that went far beyond instinct. I had never realized that protection could feel like this. Not the rush of running or guarding territory, but the stillness of being present, of letting someone fragile lean on you and feel safe. By the time the humans had finished their tasks, the storm outside had begun to soften, just slightly. But inside, the echoes of panic lingered. The kitten crouched against me, hesitant, trembling, yet clinging in tiny bursts of trust. I stayed steady and unwavering, letting her lean, letting her adjust, letting her understand that even in fear, connection was possible. I could feel the bond deepening in these trials, stronger than before, tempered by tension, fear, and the unspoken understanding that we needed each other to survive, not just physically, but emotionally. And in that quiet aftermath, as the storm faded outside to a soft drizzle, I realized something I couldn't yet name. Connection wasn't just about comfort or warmth. It was about facing the storm together, letting each other be scared, letting each other falter, and staying anyway. She was still trembling, still uncertain, but pressed against me with tentative courage. And I knew with every heartbeat and every small nudge that we were no longer two lost creatures alone in the rain. We were companions, learning the fragile strength of trust in the eye of the storm. The morning light was pale, spilling through the shelter's tall windows, casting long, soft shadows across the damp floor. The storm had faded to a distant memory, leaving behind the smell of wet earth, concrete, and the faint musk of animals adjusting to the quiet. I was lying low in my usual corner, muscles still stiff from the tension of the previous days, but something had shifted. She moved beside me, slower now, her paws pressing softly against the tiles, confident enough to explore the space near me without flinching. I lifted my head, watching her, and realized that we had reached a new kind of understanding, a delicate, almost invisible rhythm connecting us. She leaned against my side instinctively, letting her tiny head rest on my shoulder. I felt her subtle tremors as she settled, each shiver slowly fading into steady breathing. Without thinking, I shifted slightly, curling around her like a soft shield, pressing my body against hers just enough to let her feel the warmth and steady heartbeat beneath my fur. Her small paws moved gently, mapping the contours of my side, and I could sense her tentative curiosity transforming into trust. My tail flicked in small, deliberate motions, a silent language I had learned she could feel without sight. Every breath we shared became a lesson in timing and patience. I nudged her lightly, pressed my chest against her side when she twitched. Each micro-movement seemed to reassure her that I was present, that I would not leave, that she could rely on me. And in turn, I began to notice the subtle ways she communicated, tiny pressures of her paws, the faint exhalations, the minute shifts of weight when she leaned closer. It was a language of survival and trust, unspoken but understood. Time moved differently in that quiet corner. I felt her relax further, curling fully against me, her breathing falling into a rhythm that mirrored my own. The heartbeat beneath my chest pulsed steadily, strong and calm, and I sensed her finding it comforting. For the first time, I realized that this shared rhythm, the sync of breath and heartbeat, was more than survival. It was connection, a silent promise that we would endure the world together, come what may. I felt a profound joy, and that didn't rush or shout, but settled deep into my chest, warm and steady, as if our bond had made the shelter itself softer, safer. Outside, the drizzle had thinned, sunlight beginning to glint on puddles scattered across the yard. I could hear distant sounds of birds returning, tentative and chirping, and I imagined the world outside the shelter beginning to wake. Yet here, in our small corner, everything else faded into the background. The noises, the other animals, even the humans became distant echoes. All that mattered was her tiny body pressed to mine, her trust radiating through subtle movements, and the heartbeat we shared, her slow and uneven at first, now settling into the rhythm of mine. I realized that growth was happening quietly, almost imperceptibly. She was learning to navigate the world with me as her anchor, and I was learning to be gentle, patient, and unwavering in the face of her fear. Every twitch of her paw, every faint sigh, every brush of fur against fur strengthened a bond that words could never capture. I felt my instincts sharpen, not in the way of guarding or chasing, but in the way of guiding, supporting, and protecting without ever pressing or forcing. By midday, she moved around me freely, confident enough to explore, yet always returning to the comfort of my side. Each time she returned, I pressed a little closer, nudged gently with my nose, and let her feel the quiet, steady rhythm that had become our unspoken language. It was in those moments, the tiny, precise adjustments, the quiet presence, the heartbeat beneath her paws, that I understood the miracle of trust. It wasn't about sight or sound. It was about presence, patience, and the courage to let someone lean into you, fully and without fear. As the sun broke through the clouds and golden light spilled across the shelter floor, I rested my chin lightly on her head, feeling the rise and fall of her breathing, knowing that we had crossed a threshold. She trusted me completely now, and in doing so, she had taught me a lesson I would carry forever. That true connection comes not from control or protection alone, but from sharing rhythm, heartbeats, and the quiet assurance that someone will always be there. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of sun-warmed earth through the open shelter doors. Light streamed in, soft and golden, painting the tiles with gentle streaks. I rose from my corner slowly, muscles still stiff but heart lighter than it had been in days. The little kitten, eyes still clouded and blind, stirred beside me, stretching her tiny body against mine. She had grown bolder over the last 48 hours, moving with tentative confidence, paws tapping carefully against the floor, ears flicking at every distant sound. I watched her, chest swelling with a strange warmth, realizing just how far we had come together. She approached me, small but deliberate, pressing herself against my side. I nudged her gently with my nose, the motion instinctive, familiar, reassuring. For a moment, the world outside the shelter didn't exist. The wind, the humans bustling, the distant sounds of other animals, all of it faded into the background. All that mattered was the small, perfect rhythm of our shared presence. Her paws brushed lightly against my chest, and I felt the subtle vibration of her trust. She had learned to rely on me, and I had learned in return the quiet strength of patience, protection, and empathy. I guided her slowly across the shelter floor, careful to adjust my pace with hers. Every step we took together was deliberate, a dance of mutual understanding. The humans watched quietly, whispering among themselves, but I didn't notice them. My focus was entirely on her breathing, her balance, her comfort. I could sense her excitement at exploring, yet her lingering caution, and I matched each movement with subtle shifts, gentle nudges, and the steadying press of my body. The bond we had forged was unspoken but unmistakable. At one point, she froze near a puddle, uncertainty pressing against her body. I lowered my head, letting her feel the rhythm of my heartbeat, my presence as a guide and shield. Slowly, she leaned forward, testing the water with a tentative paw. I pressed my side against hers, nudging gently, silently cheering her forward. The first tentative step was followed by another, and then another, until she was moving with confidence, her trust in me absolute. My tail wagged, not wildly, but steadily, a reflection of the deep satisfaction and relief coursing through me. Time passed differently now. The storm that had dominated our first days was gone, replaced by the warmth of sunlight and the soft hum of a waking world. Yet inside, the world we had built was still ours, a safe space carved from patience, presence, and shared vulnerability. I could feel her small body pressed fully against mine as we rested, breathing in sync, heartbeats mirroring one another. In these quiet moments, I realized that trust was not just about survival. It was about connection, about opening your heart to someone who had every reason to fear, and proving that the world could be gentle even when it had been cruel. By the afternoon, she moved with assurance, circling me, testing boundaries, yet always returning to the comfort of my side. I followed instinctively, nudging her gently when needed, letting her feel the protective weight of my body. The humans smiled quietly, but they were irrelevant to us. Our world had been forged in the quiet struggle of shared fear, in the soft comfort of warmth pressed against warmth, in the heartbeat we had synchronized over days of trials and tenderness. Finally, as sunlight spilled fully through the windows, I rested my chin lightly over her tiny head, feeling her relax completely, her body melting against mine. And for the first time, I understood the truth of our small, fragile world. It had opened not because the storm had ended, but because we had faced it together. She could not see, yet she had found vision in my presence. She had been blind, yet had discovered the world through touch, rhythm, and the steady assurance that someone would always be there. I closed my eyes briefly, letting the warmth of our bond settle deep into my chest. The world beyond the shelter could be chaotic, loud, and unpredictable. But here, in this quiet space we had claimed, everything had shifted. We had learned to trust, to rely, to comfort, and to grow. And in that simple, perfect moment, I realized the greatest miracle wasn't just survival. It was connection. Two small creatures, lost and frightened, that opened a whole world together, one heartbeat at a time.